couple more seconds for it to connect to everything. All
Need some
right.
dancing music.
Just need some dancing
There you
music.
go. Yeah.
Welcome back to Boss Uncaged podcast. So this is going to be like a, obviously all my conversations are definitely personal, but this woman and I have kind of been connected through the grapevine of Damon, right? So those that remember, I think it was season 2, episode 2, episode 3. Damon is like my brother from another mother, and we got connected way of that. And it's like the synergy was just there, 100%. So, like, this is the first time we've actually had a conversation besides being on social media, right? Like, kind
Yep,
of like
absolutely.
so this is like the first time we're actually kind of meeting each other, but still in virtual space because we're digital marketers, right? So, as you know, I like to give whoever I'm talking to a particular nickname, and I was kind of going through her information, and I think she kind of self-defined herself right off bat. So she is going to be the inspiration boss, pound for pound,
Ah, I love
pound for
it.
pound, right? So then the floor is yours. I want you to talk about who you are to the listener a little bit, and also what would you like to talk about today?
Oh my goodness. Oh, there's so much there. First of all, my name is Nhien, pronounced like ninja. I'm from Vietnam originally, and I think my biggest landmark in terms of where I am now and how I got to why I share the messages that I do is based off of the fact that growing up, there was just so much confusion in what I learned, how I was raised. My culture, traditionally Vietnamese, is very different than Americans. And so being integrated to this space when I was younger, I was very confused and lost in who I was because when I came here, I really wanted so badly to fit in. I wanted to be white. I mean, that's everyone around me was white. They spoke English. I didn't even, I was embarrassed, in fact, when I was asked if I knew specific words in Vietnamese. I was like, oh, I don't know how to say that. And I was proud of not knowing my heritage. And flash forward to where I am now with 3 kids. It's such a huge thing to know and be a part of different cultures and to be able to appreciate where I came from. It helps me to learn about other people and appreciate where they came from. And through this whole journey, trying to figure out who I am, how I fit into this whole place, because people who look at me who might not know me, right, or have not heard me speak, they would assume, okay, she might be very Asian, might not know any English.
Mm.
And then they hear me speak and they realize, okay, she's probably from around here. And having that, carrying that around and struggling with myself and where I belong, finding my people in the end, like where I'm here now and the right communities, like how we are connected, SA, like I absolutely love it. And my goal is to help others to find and light the magic within themselves just through communicating what and who they are, and what they do best, what they love. And finding those things is a part of a journey of asking yourself questions of whether or not the things that you were taught and brought up to believe are really what you believe. Are they meant for you? Are they aligned with your vision for what life is meant to be? And so, yeah, so really that's what I do now is just every time I learn a major lesson that has changed the way that I view life, I try to share it because I hope that it inspires other people to live a more enlightened life, and more joyful life, because we have this one life to live. And how else should we live it other than in the most beautiful way,
Mm.
as exactly who we are?
Hmm. I think that's a hell of an opener, right? And it kind of leads me into, I think I found it on your Facebook page and it was like one of your favorite quotes that success is not the key to happiness, but happiness is the key to success. So essentially, like you're living the representation of that quote. So I want you to kind of talk about that for a minute.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So, one of the things when it ties to success and happiness,
Mhm.
one of the things I heard recently that I feel like really puts everything all together, is you are your best now.
Mm.
You can't change the past and you can't change the future. You literally only have what's in front of you, who you are now. So, regardless of what's happened already, how can you be your best self? What kind of things can you do today to set yourself for a brighter future? if you have other people who depend on you, who are around you, who are inspired and empowered by you, what kind of actions are you taking? How are you waking up in the morning? How are you bringing your energy to other people, whether it's online, whether it's in the grocery store, or when you're having a deep conversation or a networking event or via dinner, just one-on-one? How are you presenting yourself? And in each of those moments, is it the best you, or are you phoning it in, right? Are you just on autopilot? Because that's going to happen sometimes. But the more that we recognize that we are acting on autopilot, or the more that we recognize that we aren't present, we can check in with ourselves and tune back into, okay, I'm here for this conversation. I'm here for me, and I'm here for you. And so that whole thing encompasses the whole fact that we are our best selves now. And if we don't enjoy it today, when else can we enjoy it? So I love that the encompassing idea of success and happiness and confidence, like it all works really well together.
So, I mean, that kind of leads me down to, it's like another statement that you had made online. I think this one was on your TikTok channel, and I found it very funny and humorous, because I mean, obviously, like, I know that you're into the digital marketing, you have a marketing background, a marketing degree, and all these different things, but it was a clip that you did and was like, what do you do for a living? And your response was like an audio overview of saying that I do my best, Tom. That's what I do, my best.
Yeah, I love that.
So I want you to talk about that. I mean, because obviously, as a person, like if you go into networking events, if you meet somebody new, they're always asking the same style of BS question: is what do you do? But in reality, it's kind of like what are you doing? That are you doing your best? Like, so I want you to kind of talk about what does that really mean to you, and how do you use that to portray that to your clients?
Oh my gosh. Okay, that's another one that I really love. And it's exactly like you say, whenever you go to any networking events or really have any conversation with someone brand new, it's either talking about the weather, right? Or where they're from, very generic, general things. And saying I do my best kind of resets people when they ask you, oh, what do you do? And you're saying you do my best. It knocks people off of their feet, like, okay, I didn't expect that. But some people can even take it in the wrong way. But the whole idea is like, I'm here. And I just want to get to know you. Like, what can we explore about you? But doing the best, just whatever it is. I don't identify myself as a mom specifically. I'm not just a business owner. I'm not just an entrepreneur. I'm not just a daughter, right? Like, we all are holistic in everything that we've accomplished and have taken part of and experienced in our lives. And so to say, oh, what do you do? Or what do you do for a living, right? Like, to identify as one specific thing is so limiting. And to say that I'm doing my best, it's like, there's so much beauty in that, and how you bring yourself to the space and how you are present in whatever it is that you're doing.
I think that's a phenomenal answer. And I swear to you, like this episode is not scripted. None of my episodes are scripted, but it's like every time you say something, it's like you're leading me into like another thing that you had said online that kind of just brings up my next question. So like part of what you just said was like being limited to doing one thing, but you had posed a question, I think it was on your Instagram Live or Instagram Reel, and you was like, have you found your one thing? I'd love to know. So
Yes.
I want you to kind of talk about like, how does that play into it? I mean, obviously being limited by it, but at the same time, have you found your core passion?
Oh my gosh. Okay, I'm gonna like cut real quick. You're so good at this. This is so joyful because you're insane. Like, when you said you needed like just the time, I'm so blown away. First of all, I so appreciate you like taking the time to really, like, that's a lot. All of these things that you're bringing up, because it takes me back. Every post that I do, first of all, none of them are pre-scheduled. I do it all like in the moment, and there's a reason why. Is because I'm really energetically connected to my posts, and a lot of people will say you shouldn't be, but I do remember that specific moment. I was actually at Starbucks, and I asked that question because during that time, everyone was teaching, find your niche, find your one thing, and tie yourself to that, because that's how you'll find profit. That's how you'll find your community. That's how you'll make money. That's how you'll be successful. And so there are a couple of ways that I view that. One of which is finding what really lights you up. Your core passion will help you to, again, be your best in everything else, right? Whatever that core passion is. That core passion might not necessarily make you money, though. It might not necessarily be the thing that connects you with other people. But if it helps you to be present and show up in a really meaningful way, then that improves everything all around. And it's funny that you ask if I have found my thing and my core thing. And as I continue to evolve and continue to show up, Chanel, it's people. I love people so much, and I find so much joy in connecting with others and learning about their stories and sharing their stories and using that to inspire others to say, you know what, you're not the only one who may have experienced this one thing, and life gets tough. We'll definitely have our moments, but know that there are other people who have experienced that same thing and they found a way out, which means you can too, and you can use that as your step to getting out of where you are now to really thrive and find your thing and excel in it.
So, I mean, obviously, when we started off this show, I gave you a particular nickname, and I've kind of been leading you down that path to personify that, the meaning of that nickname of being the inspiration boss. And everything you said from now until the beginning of this show has been 100% inspiration. So, like you're talking about inspiration, but satisfaction and inspiration are essentially two different things. So that kind of leads me to another post that you were talking about. Would I have been satisfied was the question. I think it was about self-analyzing. You did like 7 parts or something like that.
Yes.
So I want you to kind of talk about, like, obviously you're a ball of inspiration, but with that inspiration, does it come satisfaction? And if it does, how do you then use that to help your clients?
Oh my gosh. I love how you put that together. So what you're talking about is in the 7, I can't remember if it was 7 or 8 series, where it was actually 28 questions from Think and Grow Rich from Napoleon Hill. And I love that book so much. There's so much gold in there. I actually compiled all of the lists that he created and all the specific steps to finding success that he learned from the people that he interviewed. And that the 28 questions was one set of questions. And to answer your question, back then when I created that series, I was actually in the middle of not having any clients. I had no clients at the time. And I was actually really, really struggling financially. However, the really interesting thing was I was so deeply happy. And it was facing those questions and not having any clients at that time. I want to say I was either 7 or 8 months pregnant, allowed me to really sit with what is my need in terms of joy. What does it take for me to show up fully for not only myself, but for my clients? And if I can tune into that and be the best within that, well-rounded in a holistic way with the things that I believed in, with the things that I feel like we need as people beyond monetary, beyond goals, just to live. Like, what does that include? And for me, if I get to spend the time that I need and want to with my family, with my children, with my parents, that allows me to really serve my clients really, really well. And that's why I do what I do, because I have that freedom and flexibility to accomplish my goals and my tasks with my clients whenever I choose to. We know what we need to accomplish, and then I get it done. There's not hey, this is something I need it done now. We have a set hours of or we have set hours of 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. and it's done within this time frame or nothing else. I can stay up as late as I choose to. I can wake up as early as I choose to. And there have been plenty of mornings where I wake up at 4 or 5 a.m. because it's the quiet time when my family is sleeping, but I get to stay up until midnight during the summer and enjoy the time with my family the way that I want to. But to answer those questions, having those reflections every year or every quarter, whatever you choose to do, helps you to reset and retune into, am I serving to the best of my ability? And if I'm not, like, why am I not? What is it that is preventing me from being satisfied in what I do? And then serving in a way that my clients are satisfied as well. And I think that all comes down to, if I'm not satisfied internally in my life in general, in what I'm offering to my family, what I'm offering to the people around me, I can't be satisfied in what I serve to my clients because I'm not fully giving, I'm not fully delivering on my promises.
So, I mean, it's definitely fascinating. And I think, again, for the listener, this is not pre-scripted. It's just so weird that we're on the same wavelength. And obviously, rightfully so. I think we knew that right off bat when we first met each other, right? But I think that kind of leads me into like your family to a certain extent. And it was a post that you were talking to about your son while holding your son. And you were saying something about along the lines that you tell your son regularly that he's exactly what he's exactly what you need to make every day great.
Yes.
So it kind of goes into what you're talking about. Like, if you have the opportunity to be an entrepreneur and you're spending time with your family and you're spending time with your kids as you want to versus being on someone else's schedule, then in return, you're being able to be great to your clients. And again, I'm paraphrasing that, but what's your thoughts on that statement that I just made?
Yes, no, I completely agree. Absolutely. When I get to do what I choose to, and I have the freedom to do it on my own time and still really fully showing up for the things that I want to do outside of client delivery, then yes, I have the opportunity to make every single day great. And I fully believe that. And the reason why I try to impress that on my son is because he gets so he's so aware. He's only 5 and he's so aware of everything that happens in every day. He tends to highlight the bad things that happen. And to him, I have to bring myself back to remember that, he's so little. What he's experienced is to him a ton, but it's nothing in compared to what we've been through as adults, right? So he highlights things that are really important to him, whereas we can see the bigger picture, and we know that there's so much more than that boo-boo that happened that day, or his friend who was mean to him that day, maybe whatever it is. I remind him that he has the ability to control his thoughts and how he views everything around him, right? So he had a boo-boo. You have the chance to get back up again and try again. Like he recently got Heelys, and I was awful at teaching him how to use. It was so bad. It was so bad because I don't know how to use them myself. It was another lesson in like the blind leading the blind, but we really wanted to go out. It was super hot, and I held his hand and I was like, all right, so you just give it a go, try to glide, I'll hold on to you, and you'll do great. And we were out there for only like 15-20 minutes. He ended up scraping his knee and crying, and we went home. But ultimately, if you take that opportunity to say, all right, that really stank, but I'm gonna ask daddy because he's used Heelys and he knows how that process works. We can try again. We don't have to throw these away. They don't have to just sit there or be given away. I can give it another go, and it can be a lot of fun. It's all in his mindset. It's all what he allows himself to believe. And the reason why it's important to me is because growing up, one of those things was those people who you see who are really successful and are doing really well, doing the non-traditional things, is because they either had a lot of money or they're really special.
Mm-hmm.
You aren't really special. So you need to go to school and you need to do one of these things that are for sure going to guarantee success in your life, that are going to set you up for a good family life. It's going to set you up for a good, stable career. You don't have to worry about anything. But none of that matters to me. What matters to me is that I get to express myself creatively. I get to spend time with my family. I get to help them to become better versions of themselves because they see the possibilities in life. And I care more about teaching that than I do about making a ton of money so that I can buy all of these luxurious things. We don't live in the nicest place. We don't have the nicest car, and all of those things are okay because we still get to experience the things that we want.
I think like you're an embodiment of something that people usually don't talk about when it comes into the marketing space, right? I mean, marketing usually defines selling, promotions, conversions, sales, lead funnel, and I can go on and on about these keywords. But the reality, all those things are happening based upon the emotion. Like, what is that person feeling towards that product or that service? Are they buying it because they want it? Are they buying it because they think they need it? And again, you're like an embodiment of that. So I want you to kind of talk about your background. I mean, you have a marketing degree, but you're more so leveraging the economy of emotions inside of marketing versus marketing with emotion.
Yeah, that's really interesting that you asked that, Chanel. What Okay, so first of all, I tried going down the path that I thought everybody wanted of me. And so it ended up taking me 11 years to finally graduate from and get my college degree. And the reason why was because I tried the pharmacy path and doing the medical path, which in Houston here, it's huge. And that's guaranteed success in most people's lives, but I did not enjoy it. I loved the people. Like, the people were great. I went to Texas Southern and I was a part of the organizations. I led it and we did awesome things and I met really wonderful people, but the subject did not inspire me. It did not allow me to be creative. There's only so much you can do in the medical field, right? You're going to practice what's already been out there, what's already been found. Whereas I wanted to express myself creatively. And so it wasn't until doing this for several years that I finally realized what clicked is, and I learned this, that some people teach this. And I love that they taught this, because when I connected the two, I was like, this makes so much sense. People buy for the person behind the service or the product. You can have a really great service, but if are we allowed to cuss on here?
Of course.
Because you can have a really great service or product, but if you're a shitty person, I'm going to spend my money elsewhere, or your product might be subpar, but geez, I love you so much because you're so awesome. You do such a great job at life and you share such inspirational things. You teach me how to be a better mom. You teach me how to live life more fully. I'm going to absolutely invest in your product. I'm going to drive a little further to get your product or your service just because I love the person that you are. And so when I realized that, and I saw that, it helped me to really be more of myself, but also realize that I can invest in people that I love and work with people that I love, even if their product isn't like the best in the market or the best in the industry, because at the end of the day, people connect with people. They connect with other humans. They don't connect with a service or a product. Anyone can provide a service or a product, but not anyone can be you, Chanel. Not anyone can be Nhien. Not anyone can be Damon or anyone else that you work with, right? All of the conversations that you've had, Chanel, the way that you connect with them, you remember them. You're not going to necessarily remember the service that they provide, but you remembered the questions and the conversations that you had together. You remember the way that they made you feel, right? So that's where it all connects for me. It's like, if I am fully invested in my client, if I'm fully invested in the person that they are, I understand their mission and their vision, and I can get behind that. There's no reason why we can't find success, because that's what people are wanting at the end of the day. They want someone to understand them. They want someone they can connect with. And once they do, they'll go wherever your services go, no matter how much your product evolves, no matter how many other things you add to your product line, they're for it because they're for you.
Mm. I think that's a hell of a segue into talking about like the title of your podcast. I mean, what you just defined, we could easily transcript that and put it in the definition of what your podcast is and what it does. So I want you to kind of talk about like the Inspire Love Life and Business podcast. Like, how did you find that as being like your greatest voice per se, and how are you then leveraging that on a business side?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Okay. So I started my podcast. So I wanted to create a podcast for years. Never really an intention behind it. I just thought it was super cool. Growing up, I've always been told like, "Oh, you have such an awesome voice. You should do something." And I've always loved radio, which is really funny because Damon used to be in radio as well.
Mm.
But I loved radio. I when I first came to America, I remember there were songs that I just really loved, and I would record them on on a cassette, and I'd stop them so I could write down the lyrics, and I'd stop them and I'd write down the lyrics. And as I got older, any song that I really loved on the radio would record over the other songs. But with that being said, starting that podcast, I started it because I had that on my heart to create the podcast, to share the experiences that we talked about earlier in our conversation, to help and inspire others to really show up in their life, their business, and in love and relationships. And as I continued, it wasn't giving me life in the way that I was hoping.
Mm.
And I didn't know what the missing piece was, besides for the fact that I just had my son. And it was really hard to show up in a lot of ways, like online, just because he's a newborn and still needs so much of me. But while I was thinking about that, I was like, how do I make this connection? How do I make this make sense so that I can show up fully and like exuberantly? Because I don't want to seem flat. In fact, I was going through clips just 2 days ago. Can't remember. Yeah, 2 days ago. And I was pulling up clips and I was like listening to myself. And it was so cringy because you can hear when I'm super excited in the beginning, and then you can hear where it just really falls off and the personality is gone. And I'm sharing my story, but as like a shadow of myself. And
Mm.
the reason why is because I thrive in conversations. I do really well when I'm getting back and forth, and exactly in this setting. And I know so many awesome people, having worked in this space for the last several years. I've met people that I just love so much. Again, going back to, they're so awesome, and what they offer is so great that I know a lot of people who need their service or products. But how do I do it in a way where I'm not shouting about everyone all at once and not really giving them their time
Mhm.
to really shine? And it finally clicked. And I was like, this is exactly the avenue. So many people want to be on podcasts. So many people want to start their podcast, but for them, it's super overwhelming. I had all the tools. I love tech so much. I love finding all of these new tools to help us to be more efficient, more creative and productive, so that I was like, okay, I can use my skills. I
Mhm.
love exploring and asking all of these questions to pull the best out of people. And at the same time, they get to share what they're offering to the world. And then my audience gets to involve themselves with these amazing people that I already know, and I get to highlight them on my podcast. So it's like, it's a win-win all around.
Hmm. I think, and again, I keep bringing this up, and I said it repeatedly. This is completely not scripted. And again, although my questions are organic, and it kind of just leads me down the path based upon what you said about like confidence. And I think there was a quote or a statement that you made. I finally gained confidence I had always hoped for. And I
Mm.
think it was a TikTok video or something along the line. So I want you to kind of talk about that. I mean, obviously going through your journey, trying to figure out, right? You was like, oh, I'm gonna do medical. Oh, medical ain't for me. And I ended up in marketing. And it took you 11 years to kind of organize and figure that out. And in that journey, you had to figure out who you were and get your confidence. So I want you to kind of talk about like what kind of level of confidence did it take you to find yourself and then take that confidence and create that podcast?
Oh my gosh. Okay. So first of all, I do want to say, you're not going to have the confidence level that you need or that you think you need, or that you want to do whatever it is that you want to do. No matter what it is, you'll never be 100% prepared. There are some people, I will say, there are some people who are 1,000% prepared. They're more prepared than they need to be. And yet they still get surprised when they start something they haven't done before. And when we consider confidence, I can't say that it's something that I gathered and gained all of exactly what I needed to start what I did. It was a matter of recognizing that if I don't take advantage of what time I have now, I'm going to have less available time to dedicate to this once my son is in the world, and I'm going to dedicate more time to my family. So if it doesn't start now, it may never start, or it may not start for another few years. Am I willing to wait on that? And earlier in life, I realized with so many things that I had on my heart that I really wanted to start doing, I would wait it out because I wanted to have all of the perfect pieces, all of the exact tools that I needed, right? Which builds into that confidence. When you have everything you feel like you need, you can be so much more confident in delivering those things. But the other thing is, if you start now and you start without all of those tools, you learn along the way, and you're so much further a year from now than if you wait and you sit in your own echo chamber and you ask yourself all of these questions that need to be answered in real life, in real time. And you don't start till 6 months from now, a year down the road, you're nowhere near as far as you would be had you started the day that you initially wanted to. And so for me, I hit that point where it's like, it's now or never. I'm so excited about this, and I have the right tools, so why not? So I think with all things, it's like, when you feel the spark, you should run with it. You should go with it. Because the longer you wait, it's not like it's going to get any more perfect. It's not like it's going to get better. It just is a different day. and you have less time to improve on it. Or, I mean, you have all the time in the world, but if you want to make the most of it, you start today, right? Why delay on that? Why delay on the things that you want to do that make you happy?
So let's take that, right? Let's just, like that last statement that you made, and let's put time travel in this equation. And I want you to kind of go back to you as let's say a 5-year-old, or maybe even a 6-year-old, as far back as you could remember. And I want you to kind of talk about like the tradition or the traditional aspect of the way you were raised, and how did that kind of help you to kind of build confidence? Because again, you're not from the US, but you came to the US. So I want you to kind of talk about like the push and pull between the traditions and how that has helped you to become more confident.
Oh, that's good. I, you know, I truly feel in my heart that if I were still in Vietnam today, that I would not have the confidence and the freedom that I do today. Because, I mean, first of all, everyone says you come to America to build that freedom, right? That what is it, Chanel? The American dream. That's what it is. Death of a salesman. Okay, so the American dream is you can get to do whatever you want, no matter who you are. You can start with absolutely nothing, and you can build and become someone huge. With that being said, it's funny that you bring up like 5 or 6 years old, because I did actually come to America when I was 6 years old. And this year, at the end of this year, it'll be our 30th year in America. And I'm like, oh, there's got to be a way that we're going to celebrate. But I building confidence through that whole dynamic of being from somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
I think it had a lot to do with me realizing that I didn't have to shut down who I am to fully enjoy life and get to show myself like to the world. There were so many times where I felt like I had to be a specific way or a certain way in order for people to accept me, in order for me to really fit in. I had to, I mean, there was that expectation of living a certain lifestyle to be accepted, to be cool, or to be popular, or to not be like the weird kid. And figuring all of that out while it's a different world in a different language, looking differently as well. I shut down all of the times that I was made fun of, all of the times that people just didn't understand why we were different. All of these things, I compartmentalized it. I think a lot of people do that, right? Where we take these things that can be really detrimental to us, that or we could allow it to really consume us, and we put it to the side, and we suppress it. And then for me, I got to a point where I learned to explore it. I learned to understand it. And I learned to really embrace, like, this is how I look. It's not going to change. I had the capacity to change it. I have the ability to change my name. I could do surgery, and I could do all of these things. But what really tied me to embracing and loving myself is I don't want to change the way that I look or who I am, because when my children get older and they look at me and they don't look anything like me, they're going to wonder, like, where do they belong? Why do I not look like mommy? Right. And I didn't want for that to happen. And in order for me to guide them well, I had to find the version of me that could really fully be confident and show up and be giving in the way that I want to give, and connect in the way that I want to connect, because that's what I want for my children. And I guess I didn't realize, like, that's where the need for that came from, because if it weren't for them, I might still be searching. I might still be really confused, but I had to step up at some point and say, you need to own it. You can choose to own it now, or you can be guiding them in a really confused way. They will be confused, and it'll make life that much harder for them. So I can be strong, and I can be a leader for them, and I can find my confidence and be me fully, or I can ask them to be themselves fully, in a dishonest way, because I'm still trying to hide myself. So I think that's where the connect came from, was the fact that, like, I want a better future for my children. I want a bright future with limitless possibilities that that my parents created for me, but they didn't necessarily create or craft in words, right?
Mm.
So yeah, I think that's how it all came about, is just wanting and hoping that I can lead that path for them, to finding their confidence and being their best selves.
I think the fact that you ended that last statement is kind of where my mind went to. It was kind of like, and these are three words that popped into my mind, was entrepreneurial, right? Inspirational, and then the last word is confidence. But I think that is something that was genetically ingrained in you because your parents took the risk, first of all, to cross, right? To come here to give you the opportunity. And again, like, you're giving your kids an even larger opportunity. So I would think from an ancestral standpoint, like, your parents are probably looking at you very prideful because you're taking what they've given you and you've amplified it to a certain extent, right? So I want you to kind of talk about like that with the upbringing, because people that don't understand like the culture of Vietnam. You guys are very, very close knit, right? You're a close
Yeah, yeah.
environment, right? Like, so I want you to kind of talk about how does your family view you now that you've had different level of successes, you've been an entrepreneur, you found your voice, you found your way, you're doing things that they couldn't even conceive when they were coming over here would be a reality for you today, but they knew that you would have the opportunity to do it.
Oh my gosh, that's a fully loaded question. Because it's just like entrepreneurship. I think parenting is very much highs and lows.
Mm.
It's never like, we're always great. We always know exactly what to do, and it's never all bad things. We have those really good moments, and then we have those moments of deep sorrow and deep regret sometimes because we've said or done something that just was hurtful. For me, it took a lot to bring things back to where I'm so grateful and so appreciative of them. I have always been grateful and appreciative of them, but I there were so many moments growing up that I was resentful because in America, you know, there are so many different things that people do like in their teenage years, and then they get into adulthood and it's like they kind of sever ties with their parents. For us, it wasn't that way. My parents are always and will continue to say, hey, this is what you should be doing, this is the right thing, you need to do this. And it's finding that balance between my voice versus their voice over my voice, or them controlling my voice. And it was a gradual process of really crossing the line and moving that line for myself, towards myself, to say, as I get older, at some point you're going to have to trust me to make the right decisions because you did a fantastic job raising me, right? um so there were challenges in that, because like you said, we are very close knit. In love, we all love each other and respect each other so much, but at the same time, it is a very controlling space where they know what's best. So in their minds, they know what's best, so they want you to travel down the exact path that they did, because they've been there already, right? But the way that things transpired in Vietnam is very, no, I can't say very different, right? Because I feel like as humans, we go through the same emotions and development from childhood to adulthood. So a lot of those emotions are the same. So there's a lot of things that they understand. But growing up in Vietnam is still going to be different than growing up here in America. And finding the ability to communicate with them, to say, I love you and I respect you. But please love me and respect me enough to allow me to try these things. Allow me to fail. Allow me to fall on my face and get up and show you, hey, it's okay. I can try again and I can do better next time. And you know, once we reached a point where they recognize, okay, it's okay that she's going to get her boo-boos. She can get up without us. She can get up without us saying exactly what she needs to do next to feel better, without us handing all of the tools for her to mend herself. She is capable. And then she's also capable of teaching what we taught her to her children in her own way, in the way that she experiences life. And we'll give our input where it's needed. We'll give our input where we feel like it's in benefit to everyone. And so I just all of that, finding that balance. I to be honest, I will say, when it comes to Vietnamese parents, they were very welcome and open to the American experience, whereas I knew a lot of other people who had even more strict upbringings than I did, and that could have been a lot harder. But yeah, I mean, I'm so grateful for the experiences. I'm grateful for the tough times that we all battled through, to get where we are today.
So I mean, obviously, like, and I was pushing you down that path because I wanted you to kind of get in an emotional state of the duality of those emotions, right? And I want you to kind of talk to the listener from a standpoint of you're coaching them, right? And obviously, you have that push and pull. You have the memories of what you went through versus how you would do it today, and you're more so a maternal instinct is to kind of give just enough to let them get the boo-boos. Like you said earlier, your son got the boo-boo and you kind of just walk them through it. And then your parents, you know, they looked at you with, okay, well, I guess she'll be okay. She got a couple boo-boos, but she'll figure it out. So ideally, if you're talking to the listener, what words of wisdom or insight can you give and deliver to them to let them know that they're going to have hurdles on their journey, but then they could figure it out and move forward?
Oh my goodness. There's There's an incident that happened here recently, and it came right after I said that, you know what, the reason why I haven't been showing up, and I know this but most people don't. The reason why I haven't been showing up, the reason why I have my phases of hiding or going into my quiet time, yes, it was something that I needed, but I needed that time to figure out the reason why I haven't allowed myself to really fully blossom and show up is because of the fact that I'm terrified of what might happen on the other side. I'm terrified of how people are going to show up, how they're going to judge me, how there will always be trolls. And the larger you get, the more impact you start to make, there are going to be people who want to shut you down, who want to tear you apart because they are so afraid of doing what you're doing. And they can't fathom that you have the confidence to own your own voice and to show up the way that you do. And it's not a direct reflection of where they are, but maybe where they want to be. And if so, someone said to me, they're like, no offense, but why would I listen to you or care what you had to say about anything? You're not an influencer and you're not anyone famous. And back then, the old me would have taken such deep offense to that. And I would have certainly gone into hiding and questioned myself and really gone into that imposter syndrome of what exactly am I doing? Like, who do I think I am? The thing is, I know better now. And I know that if I don't start today, I will never get to the point that Oprah is. I will never get to the point where Tony Robbins is. And I will never get to the point of Jeff Bezos or Melanie. There are so many people who are doing great things, but it was because they started small, because they started testing things out and figuring what was right for them. They failed so many times that they landed on all of the right things. If you don't allow for yourself to fail, if you don't start with the fear of not knowing what's going to happen, you'll never get to experience the delight of getting it right. And once I realized that it's okay for people to judge. It's okay for people to see me with my flaws while I'm trying to figure it out, while I'm trying to get it right. That's where like the light bulb went off and it's like, shoot, I'm going to try it all. I'm going to show up and I'm going to see what works and what doesn't, because that's one of the most integral parts of marketing is you have to test. You need all of the data in order to make the right decision. If you just if you keep everything to yourself, and like I said, you're in your own echo chamber, you're not asking the right questions, you're not asking questions to the people who you're presenting to or offering your services or your product to, you'll never know. And what you end up presenting is what you think they want. But again, you don't have the data points to get the right information. So if you start now, if you start without actually knowing, you'll figure it out. When you asked me earlier, Chanel, if I have found my core thing, if I found my one thing, it hasn't been because I sat there and I watched everyone else doing what they do really well. It wasn't because I watched everyone else show up consistently. It was because I started to show up consistently. And yes, there were times that it really sucked. There were times that I really questioned, like, well, like, what exactly am I doing? Who am I to do whatever it is that I'm doing? But I know that I have good intentions. I know that I'm here to make a difference. And the only way for me to create that impact is to start small, is to start now, to be able to build and grow from that. If I were to create a video today that went viral, people looking back wouldn't have a massive thing to look back on and say, hey, this is cool. This is what I want to check up on. I want to build that all out. It's okay that everything I create, even if it's at 0 views, it's all there. The right person for me will come to me and see, oh my goodness, this is like gold, right? So how come no one else knows about this? And to me too, it's the beauty of exploring something new and finding something and thinking, oh my gosh, like I've found a piece of treasure that not a lot of people have found. And so in order for that to happen, I have to start today, and I choose to be consistent about it, because in the consistency, I get to see where I can improve and get to the point where I can be the best Nhien that's comparable to my Oprah, right? That's comparable to the people that I look up to, that I was once told I could never be because I'm not that special. I'm not that unique. But I am. And so is everyone listening. Everyone has their special, unique thing. But if you don't know it, what it is now, you won't know it if you don't take that action on what you want, or even what you think you want. You don't have to know the answer now, but if you do the next thing that feels right, you will eventually land on that thing that is just beautiful every single moment that you are awake. And even when you're asleep, you're dreaming about it because you love it so much.
Now, I mean, I'm just listening to you. I mean, like the more and more, like it took me a minute to kind of figure out like your name because I was like, I'm not gonna go with what she kind of self-defines herself as. I kind of like to play with the words to come up with the boss. But I mean, you are the embodiment of inspiration. Like, I mean, literally, this entire conversation has been inspiration, 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 inspiration. So to the listener, right? They're hearing you, they're loving what you're saying, and they want to get more of this on a day-to-day basis, right? They want to listen to your podcast and reach out and communicate with you. Where do you want to send them? How do they get in contact with you?
Yeah. So my podcast is actually relaunching, if not this week, then by Monday of next week. So it's all coming together. So they can look up the Inspired Love, Life, and Business podcast anywhere that you find podcasts. But also, I am on all social media channels, and I communicate that on anywhere that I am. Is you can follow me, send me a message, and I delight in responding to people because again, I value that human connection. So the podcast, I also have, we're working on a redefining success summit that's coming up in September. And that's another way to really connect with a part of my story. And why we're doing all of that is because of the fact that people have taken everyone else's definition of what success is and internalized it, and then felt like they can't live up to it and felt really crappy about themselves. But it's because it's not their definition. You have to define success for you in order to feel good and in order to enjoy life the way that it's meant to be enjoyed. So break it all down, redefine it for yourself. And that's what the Success Summit is going to be about. That's what I'm currently working on. But I'm on all social media channels. I try to show up and I'm there, and I love to connect with others.
So, I mean, I think earlier on you had brought up Napoleon Hill, and obviously anyone that has read Napoleon Hill, and obviously there's variations of books, and like there's so many different topics that he kind of covers in the success realm. My next question kind of comes to you is like you have so much of abundance of energy and so much inspiration. Have you thought about writing a book, or are you currently writing a book right now?
Oh, thanks for asking. So I do have, that's one of the things that I do want to do one day. And all of this actually brings me back to, I create vision boards, Chanel. So I have them. And every year I create them. Actually, in fact, I reiterate it mid-year as well. So in June, around June, I do. But that is one of the things I want to do, is to be able to share a part of me to the world. It's not in the works yet. I haven't thought about how it's going to come together, but I know that one day, once the inspiration comes, it'll come to fruition and it'll be ready to be revealed to the world.
So, like on the book topic, I mean, obviously you brought up Napoleon Hill earlier, and I want to kind of figure out like what recommendations besides Napoleon Hill do you have for the listener? Books that have helped you to become who you are and as confident.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Great question. Because I mean, that listening to these books were a part of what really transformed my life. I mean, bringing me out of the depths of COVID, because I'm such a people person, as you can imagine, when COVID happened and I couldn't see anyone, I mean, it sucked the life out of me. But Brene Brown's Daring Greatly, I mean, I get goosebumps thinking about it because she hits on so many different things when it comes to shame and how we associate shame and ourselves, and we tie ourselves to different actions and different behaviors as human beings, whereas it should be detached. When I make a mistake, oh, that was such a stupid mistake, but instead we say, oh my gosh, why am I so stupid? That transformation was huge. I mean, absolutely huge, because then I recognized I'm a good person. I make mistakes and I'm going to continue. I will always make mistakes, just like the best of us out there. We will make mistakes, but recognizing that those mistakes don't define us, makes all the difference. I mean, it makes all the difference. And Daring Greatly helped me to break out of that shell and of shame and guilt. And then The Big Leap from Gay Hendricks. That was another fantastic one. Obviously, Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich, we've discussed that, right? Like in so many aspects, for any entrepreneur, that is like the go-to. And there's conspiracies out there about whether or not it's real. I don't care if he actually had conversations with people. I don't care if he actually talked to all of these successful people he said he did. The truth is, the things that he put in those books work for so many successful people now that it's entirely irrelevant to me whether or not it came out of a certain space in real conversations, to be honest. But Gay Hendricks, Big Leap, for me there, the huge recognition was, we expect that if we have really good times in our lives, that eventually it's going to come crashing down. The other foot's going to land, right? And we're going to have to experience the lows. The reality is we don't have to. Once we recognize that we deserve all of the good things because we're showing up and doing the meaningful work to show up for not only ourselves, but our community and our people, and doing what we're called to do, there's no reason why everything can't be good all the time. Even when the bad things happen, that is something that we can reflect on and say, okay, I needed this, right? Like if for a car accident, for example, absolutely not something we look forward to, but it's going to happen to most of us throughout our lives. How can we view this to say, this took us away from something worse that could have potentially happened, or now we get to go home and enjoy time together instead of, whatever the situation was at hand. Regardless, seeing the idea of being able to enjoy all that life has to offer and not limiting ourselves just because we feel like we've gotten just enough or we have so much. Having gratitude is one thing, but allowing for ourselves to achieve everything that we desire is something different. And The Big Leap really brought that together for me. It's like you can stay in that constant state of joy and happiness, and that's okay. Nothing has to come crashing down if we change the way that we see things.
Hmm. Hmm. I'm just recapping what you said, and it's so powerful to kind of hear that representation. I mean, obviously coming from a question about books and kind of instilling it into, again, another level of inspiration. It is definitely a phenomenal feat, right? So it kind of leads me down into like with your business, and considering that it took you kind of 11 years of kind of ironing out certain things to figure out the degree and what direction you wanted to go in, and now that you know that you're on the track that you need to be, where do you ideally see what you're doing 20 years from now?
Oh, I've always thought like 5 or 10 years is like really far. Like that's so far. 20 years from now, I'm going to be 50 years old. Oh no, I'll be past halfway to 60. I, I hope by then I'll have grandchildren, and that's the most that I see it. By then I will have the effect that I have hoped to create from building the consistency that I'm building now, as I'm showing up now to support each individual that I can in finding their light. I'll get to a point where I get to just reflect on all of the lives that got to fully be lived because I simply shared my stories and my lessons to inspire others to explore theirs.
Very interesting. So let's talk about, and again, I would say this is like my favorite questions that I try to ask every single person that I interview in some shape or some form. But if you had an opportunity to spend 24 hours with someone, and this someone could be someone from the past that you've never met or an ancestor, or it could be someone that's alive right now that you would like to meet, but you get to spend 24 hours with that person uninterrupted, who would it be and why?
It would be my grandma. So my mom's mom, I feel like she has an such a huge influence on who I am today. She's the sweetest lady I've ever met in my life. We lost her when I was in ninth grade, and I was really struggling between like having a really good time and actually doing well in school. And so I didn't get to be there for her funeral. So I didn't get to be there for my family when um when her life ended. But she is the person who I look to most often whenever I make decisions in life, whenever I'm questioning things, whenever I wonder if things are going to work out. It's her. Like, I just want to learn and understand at 80 years of age how she was able to enjoy life and see things so beautifully. I'm getting there now, right, where I can be more present and I can recognize when I'm in a state of ungratefulness or whatever it is. But she did it so gracefully.
Mm.
She exuded just a joy and the light that was just so beautiful, that when I think of the human that I want to be, it's her. It's her. If people could, if anyone really, actually all of our friends, anyone who ever came into her world loved the heck out of her because she was just the sweetest. And she saw only the good and everything. And it would be her. I don't feel like I got the opportunity to know her in my prime. I don't feel like I've hit my prime. But if I could talk to her today in the state of mind that I have now, I feel like I could make so much more of our relationship that I never got to cash in on, I guess.
So let's just dig a little bit deeper in that, right? So like you have an opportunity with your grandmother, and obviously you've had significant levels of achievement throughout your life, whether it was figuring out your right path, figuring out, how to monetize, figuring out marketing, figuring out all these different things, right? You have multiple different levels of achievement, and you're sitting down with your grandmother. Which one outside of your kids would you say is your most significant achievement to date that you could have a conversation with your grandmother with about today?
Most significant outside of my kids would be that I am finally at a point where I can understand my mom's
Mm.
why my mom tried so hard to protect me, why my mom and my dad tried so much to instill their beliefs and their faiths and their values through us. Again, now that I do have kids, there are so many moments that it's just like, geez, if only I could do this for her. Geez, if only I could make these decisions for them. If I could live that life for them, I would do it so well, and I'd get to protect them. And, so I think my greatest achievement would have to come back to recognizing that though there were so many struggles growing up in my relationship with my parents, trying to understand why they wanted the things that they wanted,
Mhm.
it's going through this beautiful journey now of the reason why I'm doing a lot of the things that I'm doing and have the ability to do the things that I'm doing is because of the fact that you laid that foundation for me. And I haven't always been the best in showing gratitude for that. And a lot of times they probably feel like I did not show any gratitude. And so that would be it, is being here now and knowing that it was all for such a good cause.
Mm.
And I appreciate it all.
Hmm. I think it's definitely interesting, and I mean, if your parents are potentially listening to this episode, if they're not, then obviously you have an opportunity to kind of not
Yes.
only tell them, but actually show them that actually what they did was influence you to be an influencer in the world of giving back to people. So I think that that's probably one of your greatest achievements, period.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, absolutely. I think, I will definitely have a conversation with them. We're so fortunate to see them so regularly. They're so involved in our world and we are involved in theirs.
Mm.
That I will definitely have that conversation in a deeper more meaningful way than I have beyond the general I love you,
Yeah,
and thank
yeah,
you. So for sure, thank you so much for that.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So going into closing, I like to, give whoever I'm interviewing an opportunity to become the host of Boston Cage. You're a podcaster, so you should be used to this. So now Boston Cage is your show. You're the host, and I'm your guest. What questions do you have for me?
Yeah, for sure. Oh my gosh, Chanel, you at the get, I was saying, you show up in such a massive and powerful way, and you do things 200%. I mean, like 300%. It's, just showing up or just doing the job is not good enough for you. Like, what inspired you? Was there a turning point in your life where you were just like, I have to deliver 200% of me at all times? Or has it always been like that? Was that something that was instilled in you by your parents?
I wouldn't say it was necessarily instilled by my parents per se. I think that, they both tried to do their best. I think my mom, she's like kind of like a overprotective mom still to this day. And I'm like, dude, I'm in my 40s now. Like, you don't have to be the overprotective mom. But I think it just, I don't know if it was me growing up as the only child in Brooklyn, but I was always a weirdo amongst other people, and I never really knew what it was. And until I started figuring out, okay, well, I'm an entrepreneur. Okay, what does that mean? Okay, I'm a designer. What does that mean? And the reality was me always trying to do above and beyond what I think something should be. Even when I was in art school, my first degree was kind of like I was a weirdo amongst weirdos. And I always say that because, I have some friends that we were really close knit, but at the same time, I had other people that I was around in classes and they would create stuff, but I would create things that were like, what the hell? Like, how the hell? What the hell? And I got so used to being that individual, always trying to outdo myself, not outdoing anyone else. So it just kind of ingrained in me. And unfortunately, I think I didn't realize until I had my stroke, like how detrimental that was to my health because I would do too much of the time without taking the breaks in between. So I had to kind of figure out that reset button. So like now I show up 300%, but there's downtime in between, if that makes sense. I have to have that downtime. Just like I told you, like in between episodes, back in the day, there would be no downtime. I would take episode after episode. Like before I was even a podcaster, thinking about becoming a podcaster, I would do episode after episode after episode. And by the end of the day, I probably wouldn't be able to walk or talk. But reality is me figuring out, okay, I need to have a buffer. I need to have like an hour gap. I need to have a 30-minute gap because all this information that you and I have been talking about, imagine me ending this episode now and going into another episode right
Oh
afterwards and
my
doing the same
gosh.
exact thing. Like my brain, hence why I probably had a damn stroke before, because you just can't do that to yourself all the time.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. That's there's so much in that. You know, I what I want to ask is, was there a reason why you felt like you had to show up in such a powerful way? Was it to make up for everyone not showing up for you, or in your world that you felt like you had to make up for all of that?
I think everyone is built uniquely different but the same. And what I mean by that is kind of like everyone has some kind of a level of achievement, right? Let's say if you're a lazy bum, your level of achievement is that you want to be lazy all the time. You want to be the best at being lazy. And so for me, it was kind of like once I figured out that I was a creative person, I want to create and create and create. And so if I'm not creating, then I don't feel like I'm alive, if that makes sense. So for me to create is for me to be alive.
Oh my gosh. And you're constantly creating and you're doing such a fantastic job of it. Every time I see something new from you, I'm like, oh my gosh, he does this too. So I would love to know, like, what of all of the things that you've created do you find the most joy from? Do you feel like you get to be the best Chanel in?
Um, I would say, I mean, outside of like family and kids, if you're
Yeah.
talking about
Yeah.
like strategy, business, and all that stuff, I would say podcasting kind of gives me the opportunity to do that. Everything else that I'm doing falls into this, and I try to make it all into this ecosystem of Boss and Cage, the brand, and podcasts and the tentacles. So I would say, like doing these episodes, I mean, the opportunity to not only I can network with you, right? We can get on a 15-minute coffee call and shoot the shit and talk about this, talk about that. But the level of conversation that we're having and unpacking who you are and who I am within this hour 20-minute time frame is way more viable for who we are and connection as far as building brands and networking moving forward versus just spending a 15-minute call trying to sell you something or you trying to sell me something or who would I connect you with. So for me, the real networking and real strategy behind business is communication, but it's dedicated communication and it's consistent communication. And right now in today's world, the only way to do that is really through podcasting.
Oh my gosh. I that's so true on so many levels, and so needed in right now. And it's actually, it touches on the whole networking thing and how people are trying to get to know each other because they were taught and told you need to go get to know other people, you need to build relationships, and like, okay, well, let me go build relationships, I'll start all these conversations, and not really know anyone. So I absolutely love that you're taking advantage of this opportunity for you to really show up and do what you love in a
Mhm.
creative manner and express yourself in that way. Um, who has been an overwhelming podcast guest where you were so enthralled by their story that
Mhm.
you felt like you carried that into yourself, and then and the way it transformed the way that you live? Have you had a conversation like that?
Yeah, I mean, I think I try to put that into every conversation, and like looking back in retrospect, who I am as a host now, I wish I could take this person back to season one or to season two or even to season three, because I give so much more insight to who that person is versus before I was kind of following the rhythm and kind of figuring things out. But now I know what I'm doing and how I'm doing it. So to answer your question, I think the person for me, and it's not just because of her net worth. I mean, she's a billionaire, but Wiley Day really did it for me because it was like not only an opportunity to speak to a billionaire, but to hear how grounded she was and how she doesn't take things for granted. Like an entire conversation at the ball and at the end of it, she was just happy that she's going to be a first time grandmother. And we was talking about her new, grandbaby that's coming. We talked about all these different things, and it kind of just it dawned on me, and people think about it collectively. Well, millionaires are millionaires, billionaires are billionaires. We're all kind of human, but intellectually they think differently. But in the grounding of it, they're all still human. You just have to kind of get past like trying to ask them for something. You got to get past trying to get them to do something for you, and then they'll be their real selves. And that's what I realized from that podcast. I wasn't asking for nothing. She wasn't asking for nothing. We just had a conversation, and it was such a pure conversation. It still resonates with me till this day.
I love that. And carrying that beyond just, the virtual conversations. I feel like you're someone who, when you meet somebody in real life, you take that time to really look at them in the eye and ask meaningful questions to really get to know them, versus, hey, nice to meet you, all right, awesome, what are you offering? And what you see so much of now in a lot of networking events is just that, the one and done conversations, and you never see them again, and you don't have that further connection beyond that. So the fact that you've created this space is so beautiful. Now I do want to, because we talked so much about my family, you live great experiences with your family as well. um how has that, was that something that you knew going into building a family, that you want to intentionally create moments and experiences for them, or was it something that it just happened as it happens?
I think it's orchestrated, right? I mean, it kind of like when I figured out that I was 50% creative and 50% analytical, like a lot of things that I do is premeditated. So like the life that I'm living and the life that I'm growing to live into, this kind of builds up to legacy, right? Like this podcast, the reason why I put so much effort into it, and it's kind of like I think about, okay, like my son right now, he's a senior in high school, he's going through that lazy phase, and I know that sooner or later, like you said with your parents, he may look back and be pissed off about particular things, maybe be upset, but sooner or later, he's going to become an adult. And when he becomes an adult, the abundance of content that I've created while he's now not listening, and I'm mentioning him, I'm talking to him in a future tense, and he's going to be able to look back. It should be something that would evolutionary change who he's going to be because he has the roadblocks to follow that are being developed now for him later.
I love that. I love that, that you're consciously creating something that you know will be there for him as soon as he's ready to tap into it, instead of forcing it upon him, right? And forcing him to have these conversations that he's not ready for, that he could even potentially resent you for, and really not even appreciate it. But allowing yourself to just create it, leave it there, and it existing, period. So that's so beautiful. One last thing I did want to ask is, again, you've created so many things, and used your design skills in many ways. Do you hand the reins over to anybody else now, or are you still like the creative designer in your business, and you take the reins on the design?
So what I've learned is like before stroke, I used to do everything. Like literally, I have a development degree, so I would develop things, right? I have a design degree, so I would design things, and I would build and do everything myself, which kind of like hindering, and I would become the bottleneck. So what I've learned is that I'm really good at design, and everything else I'm okay at. Like I'm good at a lot of different things, but if I had to pick one of them, it would be strategy and design. So everything else, I'm at the point now to where I delegate, but what I'll do is I'll orchestrate before I delegate. I'm saying, hey guys, here's this video of what I want it to look like, or here's a design, or here's page one. Like right now, we're rebuilding our Boss Uncaged website, and the website has been long overdue to be rebuilt and remodeled. And I was talking to the team, and I'm saying, okay, look, I know that we're looking at probably 400 pages worth of content, like all bullshit aside. That's how much
Mhm.
content we have collectively on the internet to bring into one platform. And I was like, at the end of it, like, we're not going to be competing with IBM. Once this platform is done and all of our digital assets are in one place, like everyone that's working on this should be proud of it. Because again, at that scale and that magnitude, when you really see a website that's maybe 20 pages and that's impressive, imagine a damn website that has 400 pages. That's everything orchestrated and visually designed. So I create the visual of a page or two, and then I let them develop. And then I'll review, and then I'll let them run with it. So right now they're on page 45 out of 80 pages that we reviewed in the past couple of weeks. So the goal is we're just going to keep doing that. I'm gonna keep on looking at it. I'm gonna design one part of it, and then I'm gonna let them execute it. As long as they get the principles that I'm looking for, as far as being balanced and the detail. And again, that's why I'm spending the time on the one design versus trying to design every aspect of everything.
That's awesome. Oh, that's so exciting though, for that to come out, and for so that ties back into one last question. You have built so much, and you have this massive database of great conversations and great things that you've done in the past. Would you have started any sooner had you known that you would make it to where you are today?
And this is me being facetious, but also being confident in myself. And if I knew what I knew right now and being who I am right now with the amount of content and interviews that I'm doing now, granted, if I go back in time, I would not be as effective because I had to go through that journey to become who I am. But
Yes.
there was an opportunity for me to take that journey and segment it and make it a little bit smaller. I would go back to college, my first year, and I would start my podcast then. And I like the reality of me starting a podcast 20 something years ago versus 3 years ago, there was no doubt in my mind I would be able to rival Joe Rogan or be at least on that level with that
For
much
sure.
content, that much. Because again, there's billions of people in the world. And if you're interviewing and more persons recommend and more people give insight, hey, have you heard about Boss Uncaged? Imagine if I was doing that shit for 25 years versus just being at it for 3 years.
Yeah, yeah. Oh my gosh. Like that's so good. And I'm glad, or I appreciate that you share that with me. And to think that you've only been doing this for 3 years, like, is huge, but it's a huge testament too to how much you give. But to understand that you do take the time that you need to recuperate and to reset is huge, because in a day and age where everyone is trying to chase after the next thing and be that next person, we forget to show ourselves love and to show ourselves care. And like you said, you burn out and you just it can all fall apart and it all crash and burn. But when you recognize that you need that time to reset and to understand how you can fully thrive, and fit all of that in, it's so powerful in how you can show up. So
Well,
I so
add on
appreciate
to that, I mean, not to interrupt you, but to add on to that, I
that.
mean, I think it also goes pound for pound finding your alter ego or your alter counterpart as far as partnership. So, like when I tend to kind of stare off into work, work, work forever mode, the reality is like my wife kind of helps me become more grounded. I think if she
Mm.
wasn't with me right now, I probably would have the tendency to kind of go back to the where I was before I had a stroke. But now that I have her, she reminds, like, literally, she'll be working all day. She'll come, hey, did you eat? I'm like,
Yeah.
yes, I did eat today. And so it's kind of like these little bit of reminders, but having that person that's not only looking out for you, but that's there with you for the same common goal makes the achievement so much more exhilarating. It makes it so much more exciting because it's not just me, it's me and the family and me giving back and the opportunities as somebody to say, hey, dude, like, hey, you've been working for 8 hours. You probably should take a nap. I'm like, I didn't take a nap today. I should take a nap. And then I take a nap, right? So
And to know that someone loves you so deeply and to be so intertwined with who you are as a human it's that in itself tells you I need to love myself, right? Like I do need
yeah,
to take that reset. And it's lovely. Like the again, it goes back to building those relationships and caring for others. But I thank you so much for creating this space. This was so delightful, Chanel, and I'm looking forward to just connecting with you more online and seeing more of what you have to offer and more of what you're doing. And I know like just a few years down the road, it's going to be huge, no matter what you do, whether you continue to do this podcast or to make it into something much bigger and more different. It's going to be awesome. And you're so great. Thank you so much for this.
well, I definitely appreciate it. And I think like kind of goes back to what I said earlier. I mean, pound for pound, you live up to the statement of being the inspiration boss. So people that are listening right now or that are listening to this later on, like the opportunity to connect to her. Because again, I don't think I would have this level of post podcast conversation if you were not as strong as an inspiration as you are.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much. I appreciate you. Yeah, I'm totally looking forward to, you know what, I would love to have you on my podcast as well. So we'll have to connect more, but I see so many other opportunities for collaboration in the future because this is so much fun.
Cool, cool. Well, I definitely appreciate it.